It's Power Hour LSU.
Man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter.
Let's go! Starting off a glorious Thursday live stream with some good news.
Trades was out on the field today, catching balls, moving around. He's going to be probably a game time decision. He's not where we need him to be today, but we still have some time. Braylon took all the reps today with the first team. He's ready to go, and I think we're going to list him. If not, I think he's probable, right? Yeah. Trades was out on the field today, catching balls.
Oh, Trades Green. Love to see him back out on the field. But Braylon Moore, I think we can all agree, is a more valuable piece for LSU on this year's version of the team. So it is looking good. We reported on Tuesday. I was hearing some positive vibes from players and coaches. And then on yesterday's stream, we discussed Braylon Moore's availability. He will play, which is really good. Now, how good will he be? We will see. But there you go. Now, we got a fun show lined up for you tonight. Cooper Patagna will join us at 6:30. Also at 6:30, LSU versus Florida, the kickoff. It works out like that. But the truth here is Cooper and I have been friends for a very long time. He was at 247. Now he's with CBS, which is kind of the same thing. But you're going to love him. And I'm going to love each and every one of you because I want this to be an escape with everything going on in the world. My prayers out to everyone involved with all the violence that has happened over the past week. So, look, I am of the belief that LSU is going to beat Florida this weekend. I do think it'll be close. I would not be shocked at all if Florida was able to pull this off. I have watched both their LIU tape and I have also watched their tape last week. It wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad. I do think South Florida is actually a good team, even if they get housed by Miami, who I also think is really good. I was a little bit higher overall on the ACC going into this season than most. At the top, I thought Clemson and Miami were going to be very good. I did not see Florida State, and I didn't like the rest of the ACC. Ask Jace Max, ask Jamie, Lifting, Cliff, Jeffrey. Good to see all of you in the chat right now. Okay, so first things first, LSU should defer to the second half. If there is ever a team that should defer to the second half, it is indeed LSU. This is a defensive team first. You're going to get the juiced up crowd of Tiger Stadium. If this was Jayden Daniels and the 2023 LSU offense, I would take the ball, or at least think about taking the ball. If this was 2019 LSU, I would think about taking the ball and driving down the field and getting a good 7-0 lead. But with this team, I understand Brian Kelly in the past has been a guy that prefers to have the ball first because like we have gone back and forth on that. Me and Brian Kelly, he's never responded to me. He might have just personally in his private life, but I don't agree with some of the math that he has shared in the past about taking the ball first and scoring first. I think it was a little faulty, his logic. But whatever the case may be, I do think LSU should at the very least defer to the second half. Another thing about this game is it will be a line of scrimmage game. Florida has weaknesses on their offensive line I think we have more weaknesses on our offensive line, but neither of these groups are all that good. I do give, ironically, and I can't believe I'm saying this, a slight edge to the LSU offensive line compared to the Florida offensive line, because the Florida offensive line will be on the road and the LSU offensive line will be at home. So, look, do I think LSU will be able to run the football versus Florida? It will be clunky, but I believe in Caden Durham, who didn't really have to expand a whole heck of a lot of energy at the expense of Louisiana Tech. He did play a decent amount, but I do think we'll get a full Caden Durham game. And last year, Caden was kind of not featured in the game plan as much as some would have liked versus Florida. And I think that's just going to be very key. I also think LSU needs to get vertical. We talked about it last night. We'll also bring it up here because, look, in yesterday's live stream, there was a very smart comment where a commenter said, hey, it's really hard to get vertical on offense when you don't have enough time and you're not able to protect the quarterback. And the answer and my response to that is a bunch of horse manure. You can still get vertical with a porous offensive line. There are two plays in particular that don't require a good bit of pass protection. The first is a slot fade, which has been by far Brian Kelly's best play on offense throughout his entire tenure. There's really not another to me that comes close, whether it be the Jaden Daniels 2023 offense. It was a slot fade offense, and a lot, of course, was to Malik and Brian Thomas Jr. And Garrett Nussmeier as well has been a really good slot fade thrower. Now, his deep ball throws overall have not been great, but if there is one that he's been overall pretty good at, it is indeed LSU and the slot fade. So last year, Aaron Anderson, that ball versus South Carolina, that was perfectly placed. That was a slot fade. The Kyle Parker touchdown versus UCLA, that was a slot fade. So we know Garrett can throw it. He missed a few last year. There was one versus Ole Miss to Aaron that I think he could have completed. But I think slot fades, which is the number 2 receiver being the one that runs vertical versus a slot corner, be on the lookout for that. Now, I could see Barryon lining up in the slot and us getting to that play out of that look. So I do think we're going to run that. And here's the thing. It doesn't require a lot of time. Slot fades are a little bit of a quicker hitter. And the slot fade attempt that we really tried to hit was to Trey Green versus Clemson on the first drive of the game. There's a little bit of a tug. It should have been pass interference, but it was not called. So there you go. Now, type Y for yes, type in for no. If you can hear me loud and clear, I just got 2 messages. I don't have the biggest audience in the world, but I'm very fortunate that there are some really, I guess you could say, excited people watching the show right now for this game. In other words, they have some blood and sweat equity into this weekend's game. So looking forward to seeing everyone in Tiger Stadium. I will not be at the game, and I wanted to go. I got to have a few opportunities at this game, but there's something else I have to go do. And, of course, I'm going to miss it. Charles Alexander, one of my favorite LSU legends. I wasn't even alive when he played. Wasn't even close to being alive. But he's been a friend of mine, and I'm really excited that we're going to celebrate Charles Alexander. And it's important for our younger Tigers because now from the end into eternity, kids will be able to go watch Leonard Fournette highlights on a whim because of YouTube or on TikTok or on Twitter, Snapchat, whatever app you look at. Hell, they'll put them on Tinder. If I needed to get a honey, I would put Leonard Fournette highlights on Tinder saying, hey, I will protect you like Leonard Fournette protects this ball. Not my smoothest line, but I think all the girls would swipe right. But, it's hard to go find Charles Alexander highlights. There are some on YouTube. He has sent me some himself, but it is important that the younger generation knows what came before them. And while Charles Alexander is being honored, the LSU legend that I want to honor is a man who really kick-started the modern era of LSU football success. Now, the guy who really kick-started it is Nick Saban. We all know that. But the first big marquee player was Kev Falk in the Florida game. And he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and that was in 97. So that is when the LSU football era really kicked into gear. And that's actually before me. Now, I was alive, but my earliest LSU football memory is 02. Really that 02 season. So ask anyone that game from Kev Falk was so big. And that's before I get into another thing about this breakdown I want to get into. Florida is, to me, my most hated SEC rival. I hate the Gators. The one SEC road trip that was hostile from start to finish was when I went to Gainesville when they kicked our asses in 08. That was the most hostile I have ever been received by any fan base. Frozen corn dogs being thrown at us. Heard some crazy words as well. Some of my friends that were with me might have gotten into a few tussles. And it's crazy. Ask anyone that's been to Gainesville. These two fan bases genuinely hate each other. And we're not going to have this game annually anymore after this year. Now, you will get them once every 2 years, which is fine for me. I'm fine with not having this game played every year, but I'm going to miss it. Okay, I am going to miss it. Okay, Jeffrey's old school. Good to see you. Big Deck's in the house. Hey, Sourdough Man. Look, he's a member. You could join our membership. Just hit that join button, and you get a cool little insignia next to our name. Mr. Jace Max went viral on the talk earlier this week. Social media superstar. He will own, I believe it, he's going to own my channel one day when I'm old and decrepit. Carter, what do you think is the biggest key to victory in this game? So we already discussed line of scrimmage. We already discussed the verticality of the LSU offense. Let's discuss special teams. Because LSU Florida has been the special teams game. It's just been that game. Almost every close LSU Florida game was a special teams game. Okay? Think of the last time we beat Florida in Gainesville. That last kick by Ramos was very underrated to make it a 10-point game to help seal it. But really, you think about 2020, the shoe throw game. Two all-time great kickers in the program history. One was able to make a really tough kick. The other choked it. Then you go all the way back to all the fake field goals between LSU Florida that LSU was able to pull off. 2 versus Urban Meyer. 1 in Tiger Stadium. 1 in Gainesville. Special teams is always big. And then, of course, the most iconic special teams play from this game is the one that was the most tone deaf from the referee standpoint play of the game, which was Brad Wing, of course, and the fake punt. And him doing that going into the end zone. The Australian legend. That was a bad Australian. R.I.P. Steve Irwin. But Brad Wing is an absolute legend, and he should be celebrated. So special teams has always been big. Always, always, always been big in this game. And for me, LSU special teams has been a little sloppy. Okay? Now, why has it been sloppy? Well, every year Brian Kelly has changed his special teams approach. And this year, it's not been disastrous like it was in 2022. I don't think we'll ever see that again, knock on wood. But Ramos hasn't been the smoothest. There's some injury-related stuff, obviously, with that versus Clemson in particular. We have muffed a punt. Lucky enough, Xavion was able to recover it. Overall, he's been a good returner. But you can see Brian Kelly has been furious at some assistance as far as special teams. And we saw it on the sideline versus Louisiana Tech. So we have got to be crisp in that area. Okay. Let's go to Samuel. He says, Carter, we got the stuffed gator back at the tailgate for this game. I wish I could be there. That's one of the main reasons I wish I could be there. But as Samuel knows, um, there's some things in life as you get older that you cannot miss. So there you go. Also, there will be no pregame, halftime, or postgame show. Actually, no, we will do a postgame show. It'll be a little bit later. But no pregame, no halftime. We will be back doing that versus Southeastern. So be on the lookout. Be on the lookout there. Okay. Let's go here. I remember the Gator games in the 90s. Brutals, except the time we beat number 1 Florida. Yeah. There you go. Now, it is not about the past, it's about the future. And I want to get into a few other keys in this game, players that you need to look out for. Number 94, Tyreek Sapp, is an absolute monster, a very solid defensive end. Is he going to curb the edge like Javon Curse, who played at Florida? No, but he's good. He's just solid in all facets. I do think, though, you can run on them. Even with Caleb Banks, how healthy is he going to be? I don't know. I think you can run on them. Okay. Now, from our Florida film study yesterday, a few things that we didn't discuss in last night's live stream now. The first is Florida loves to be in pistol. Okay. So we did a full pistol deep dive earlier this offseason. And what exactly is a pistol? It's when a running back lines up directly behind the quarterback in a shotgun formation. Okay. So why is pistol so effective? Well, for us, it's been ineffective. We were 61st in pistol usage last year, and our efficiency was 123rd in the country. Florida was a top 5 pistol team in all of college football last year, and they have run it quite a bit this year. Okay. Now, the reason teams like to do pistol is that it is a variation of under center where the running back is directly behind you and you don't know which direction a handoff will go. Whereas in shotgun, if you're directly next to the quarterback, the opposite direction of where the running back is lined up is where the run is normally going to go if you do indeed run. Okay. So, with that said, I do think LSU will, with their pistol usage, be a little bit more effective. I would like to think that they have gone over all the things that they did wrong. We did a full 2-hour-long live stream with Max Toscano earlier this week, and we did our own film studies of what we would change in the LSU rushing attack. Then, the second thing is Florida's pistol usage has also been clunky. They, though, have ran more effectively out of it, in my opinion. They were able to get some good runs versus South Florida. What I do think will change is Jaden Ball, number 13, will get more second half carries than he has in the past couple of games. So far, he has averaged a comfortable yard per carry, and it's not been exploded or hyperbolized, if you will, because he hasn't had a long run, right? Sometimes you can have one 80-yard run and then a bunch of two or 3 yard runs and you average 6 yards per carry. His long run of the year is 29 yards. So Florida has run the football very effectively. They have been able to get it done. They've just gone away from them. And part of that is because they've been trying to get Lagway going. And he has been fair. He has been very inconsistent. He has been a year 2 quarterback. So it's important to know that you're going to see a lot of runs out of pistol. You're going to see a lot of play action passes out of pistol. Okay. Now, I do think this is very important. And this is kind of a hard pill to swallow if you're an LSU fan because we want to win every single game. Now, you take a look at the schedule. Can LSU survive a loss to Florida? The answer to that is yes. Abso-freaking-lutely. A loss does not end this season for LSU under any of the imagination. Okay? You will beat Southeastern. You will go to Ole Miss on the road. That'll be a difficult game. But I do think by then, Ole Miss very well could have a loss by then. They have to play Arkansas and Tulane in the next couple of weeks. Now, they get both of those games at home. But for me, I don't know how good Ole Miss is. I did a full film study on them last night on Power Hour SEC. Was not impressed with Austin Simmons. A lot of what he put up was very manufactured, Lane Kiffin being a genius. He did not play a caliber of defense as LSU's. So I feel a lot more comfortable about Ole Miss. We'll see what they do versus Arkansas this weekend. And like I've said from the get-go, 4-1 at the start of the season is about where I wanted LSU to be. And in this schedule, I had LSU losing one of the first 5 games, losing one of the 3 middle games, losing one of the final 4 games, but finding their way into the college football playoff at 9-3. And honestly, I still feel that way in many ways. So I am really excited about LSU moving forward, even though there are a lot of clunky aspects of this team. But they can lose on Saturday and still be in a really good spot to make it to the college football playoff. And the truth is also the opposite. You can win on Saturday. What if Florida has just given up? They're just zoned out. They're ready to move on with their lives because they might know that Billy Napier is dead men walking. And they're already thinking about their next stop. Some of those D-backs are like, man, I should have gone with Corey over to LSU. Maybe there's some of that going on. I don't know if I'd want any of them. But what if that happens and we win this game? Well, if we win this game and Florida just comes out flat and they're terrible, how we look in the game is also important. And I know we like to think of college football as a survive and advance type of sport. But in actuality, most of the college football playoff teams that have gone on to win national championships are not survive and advance teams. They're really, really, really good teams that do not have multiple down weeks, that do not have 3 games in a row where they average less than 5.3 yards per play, which we are in dire need of being over that 5.3 mark because that would be absolutely atrocious if we couldn't get to that mark in this game. That is a Kentucky offense. That is Vanderbilt with a one-leg Jay Cutler level offense. That is not where we want to be. So understand how we play also matters as well. It really does. Okay. Now, we'll take a few more before we get to our first break and our guest. Is Braylon Moore playing Louisiana 24? Yes, indeed, he is playing. Please hit that like, subscribe button. Tyler says, my nephew is getting married at 3 or 5:30 on Saturday. And that's the downside of getting married on a Saturday. Everyone's going to be looking at their phones in the South. Being someone that works in the wedding industry, I do wedding consultation calls from time to time. Just brides that reach out and say, hey, should I get married in the fall? Go for it. Go for it. Just don't turn on Josh Pate. just don't do that. But if you want to, go for it. But understand, if you're in the South, the phones are going to be out. The phones are going to be out. It's just a rite of passage. It's kind of like if you're in the Northeast and you get married in March, everybody's phones are going to be out. It's a college basketball area. In the South, people don't care. LJ McCray, he is out, to my knowledge. Okay. Now, coming up next, a man who himself, you won't ever say this, had a fantastic high school football career in one of the most competitive eras of Louisiana high school football. He has relayed his football knowledge to working in different personnel departments, and now he is in the media. I like to think of him as a college Daniel Jeremiah. He is joining us for the first time on PHL right after this. Are you missing that sweet swing? If pain is holding your golf game back, you must check out the full simulator at the Lafayette location of Laborde Therapy Center. Yes, Chase and his team built this simulator to go along with a full set of programs catered to your needs. Yes, this entire team at Laborde Therapy worked hard to fix that back. Your elbow, shoulders, wrists, knees, toes, it doesn't matter. At their Lafayette location, 337-981-4053. Call today. But what if you don't golf? And what if you don't live in Lafayette? No problem. They fix anything therapy related. Book today, labordetherapy.com, with locations in Carencro, Youngsville, Morgan City, and Crowley. Labordetherapy.com. LABORDE therapy.com. Let's go. Cooper with the coolest last name you'll see. Patagna joins us. Follow him. Petagna. What's up, man?
What an intro, man. I remember you and I, KLSU. Do you remember the first time you and I ever did something together? And you interviewed me, you asked me a question, and I was just stone-faced, one-word answer. You cut it off. You said, Coop, we can't do that. How far we've come. It's an honor to be here, man.
I do not recall that. So wait. Did we just go off air? Was it recorded or what?
No, it was KLSU. It was one-on-one. We were recording a podcast, and that was still in my days. I had never really done radio before. You were kind of showing me the ropes, but I was so serious. And you just told me, you said, Coop, you got to loosen up, buddy. And here we are, man. I never thought, how long ago was that? 10 years ago?
No, it's way longer than that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's like 13 or so.
Yeah, it would have been 23. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, long time.
So long story short, Cooper's older brother and I were good friends early in our LSU tenure. We were in the same dorm. And he introduced me to you, and he said, hey, he wants to be in media. But I also learned you were a fantastic high school football player. And is it true that you once faced off versus arguably the best Louisiana high school football player ever? Is that true?
That is true. Tyrann Matthew, the Honey Badger, 3 years straight, Jesuit, St. Aug. I think I ended up for the career against him one-on-one, 3 receptions for like over 30 yards. But that was it. He didn't give anything, man. He was the best competitor I've ever played in any sport.
So when you went up against him afterwards, because he wasn't a 5-star, which is ironically which is one of the big things you do now. Were you like, hey, this guy is different. This guy's transcendent when you went up against him?
Yeah, you knew he was different at a really young age, at least for me. I mean, I didn't start playing, really getting reps until my junior year. So once I faced him one-on-one, you're sizing him up and you're like, all right, this guy's my size. He's 5'9" and change, if that. And I remember one time getting a target, ball gets picked off, runs it back for a touchdown, and it gets called back on a block in the back penalty. I went to my quarterback and I said, hey, man, he's all over me. Just if he's on that side of the field, just go somewhere else. And it was that type of memories every time you played him. I mean, he was unbelievable. They put him back there as a punter. Everybody knew he wasn't going to punt it, and he would just weasel his way through our special teams unit. And he was tough, man. He was one of the best. And honestly, just to see his growth from his journey at LSU to everything that he went through to the role model that he's been in the community of New Orleans, it has just been pretty awesome.
So you did personnel work for quite a few big name programs.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you name it, man. I mean, I graduated from LSU 2014 and, really goofed around for all 4 years. I was in sports administration, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then graduated from LSU and knew I wanted to work in personnel. And I got my first opportunity at Alabama as a recruiting intern. Worked there for a year, then worked at LSU for about 5-6 months, I recall. And then Cincinnati, Michigan, Washington, Oregon, got to see the country, work for some pretty amazing dudes. So, yeah, it was quite the experience, and now enjoying it on this side.
Your biggest takeaway from this year's Florida Gators team is what?
Great question. I think they're still trying to figure it out. I was listening to you talk about DJ Lagway, and DJ Lagway, if you turn on the tape last year, this was a guy as a freshman that looked a little bit ahead of the curve. And I think if you take a step back, you look at DJ Lagway, we wondered throughout the entire offseason what was going to be the impact of him missing all of spring ball. What was going to be the impact of him being limited in the fall? And we've seen him kind of miss some bunnies, right, in the passing game, throws that he typically makes. And I think for Florida, especially last week, they rely so much on that play action explosive in the passing game. They just haven't been able to find it. There were some opportunities there. There was a drop pass by Tony Livingston, the tight end, that I thought was a pretty well-placed ball. There was another one, even the ball that got intercepted, I thought was a catchable ball by J. Michael Sturdivant. So they seem close to me on that front, but this is a team both offensively and defensively that's still trying to find their way. And quite honestly, you turn on the tape at USF, it seems like they did everything but win that game, 11 penalties, shoot themselves in the foot in the red zone. And this is a team that I fully expect to play with a lot more urgency on Saturday night because, this is a team that quite honestly had a lot of expectations coming in the season. And I thought, like you were talking about, LSU had the opportunity and potentially still does, is good enough from a roster standpoint to make that case for a 9-3 team.
What do you make of LSU versus Louisiana Tech? And does that change your thoughts on this team in a matchup versus a very hungry Florida team?
I thought LSU Louisiana Tech was interesting because you watched the same game multiple times throughout the country, right? I watched Penn State up 13-0 against FIU. I watched Clemson have to battle back from 16-0 after playing a emotional game at home against LSU. This is part of the job. I think everybody thinks that you see the helmet sticker on the side and you think, all right, these teams are just going to line up and they're going to execute. And there's the human element of this game where guys have to get up for it. And I will say this, after watching LSU versus Louisiana Tech, I've never felt more confident in a defense under Brian Kelly than what I've seen through 2 weeks of the season with Blake Baker's squad. These are guys in the fourth quarter. You still have Whit Weeks, you still have Bernard Gooden, you still have Mansour Delane still on the field, and they are hunting. That is a prideful unit. And this is a group that is playing collected, they're playing fast, and they're playing disciplined. There's not a lot of MAs. There's not a lot of missed tackles. These are guys that trust their assignment and trust their coaching. On the opposite end of that, on offense, that was not the case. This looked like a unit between Tyree Adams at left tackle, Paul Mupinga at left guard, Weston Davis at right tackle, and DJ Chester, who gets thrown in after Braylon Moore goes down in the first play of the game. That looked a little bit sluggish, deer in headlights, and took a step back. But considering their youth on the offensive line, that doesn't surprise me. I also thought the quarterback was a beat off, which was uncharacteristic for him. And I thought the receivers actually played to that standard that we've started to have seen out of Cortez Hankton's group. So I think offense was obviously disappointing, but schematically, and you can speak more to this, it felt a lot like last year in the run game. It felt very vanilla. It didn't feel like they had the creative juices that they had, obviously, all offseason to get ready for a really challenging front seven in Clemson. And Louisiana Tech, it was like, we're going to roll the ball out there, and it's just what I like to call like a get out of here game. Let's just get out of here. Let's get out of here unscathed and with the victory, and we'll look to Florida. So I think you had one side of LSU's team playing like they're on bath salts, and then you had another one that was really just trying to get to week 3.
I would waste your time if I asked your thoughts on some of these other games, because I do, but this is something that is just a question I get a lot of, is how does 247 evaluate prospects? Okay, now I will say this, and I've never told you, actually I have told you this privately, but I will say it publicly, that one man that always got so much hate was Andrew Ivins. I never understood it because he was so sharp. He was so. Am I wrong about that? Because I know you're with CBS and not so much 247 anymore. But I've never met Andrew Ivins. But if you ever actually read that man's write-ups, they were normally pretty accurate. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's more than fair. One of the hardest workers I've ever worked with on the
Yes.
personnel side, regardless if I was working for a team or working in the media space, and takes his job and his craft very seriously, and a guy that I have loved to work with side by side over the last 4 years. And here's the thing about talent evaluation that a lot of people, I think, don't understand. It's not an exact science, especially when you were projecting 16, 17-year-olds to the Sunday level. And that's it. With these high school rankings, we're projecting players to NFL draft success. Where are they going to get drafted? Are they going to be a day 1 prospect? Are they going to fall on day 2? Or do they have more day 3 traits? Now, the information that has started to materialize all through high school scouting is unbelievable. During my time in Alabama in 2014, the information that we have now versus when I started in the industry is standardized combine testing, video footage of all these guys that you get to see work out from a bend, flexibility, athleticism standpoint, being able to body type, being able to get to see these guys in the All-American Bowl go against good. The data points are so much more accessible than they ever were. And Andrew, his team have done a phenomenal job, just in terms of trying to hit a moving target. And, if Andrew's getting criticized, I'm getting criticized. Like, one of the big ones is like, we moved Will Campbell down in the rankings, right? And this is a good one for LSU fans. He was in the top 32. We removed him. I think he ended up right around 64. So he would have been one of the first few picks of the 3rd round. We made that move at my behest because I was really worried about the arm size. I think he was 32 7/8 when we had him in high school. And we saw him at the Future 50. We watched him go up against Walter Nolan. We watched him go up against some really legitimate defensive line prospects who got drafted alongside of him this past year. And he struggled to anchor. And he was a good athlete. He was an elite athlete. And it's funny, he goes out and he starts from day 1. He's one of the best offensive linemen LSU's ever had, absolute Iron Man, gets drafted top 5. But the conversation surrounding him going into the draft process is what? It's his arm size.
Yes.
And people don't know, is he a tackle or he's a guard? So all that stuff goes away for about 3 years. And then when push comes to shove and it's time for the Sunday evaluators to come along, that's when it gets brought back up again. So I find it really fascinating. And
I didn't know it was you that said, "Hey, we need to move Will down." I didn't know.
Well, I'm a height, weight, speed guy, but over the last 4 years, especially doing this on the media side, there's lessons learned as you watch these guys get drafted. Will Campbell was as clean as they come, especially between the ears, and what he put on tape. He was absolutely everything that you wanted to have. The one negative was, I'd love him at 33.5. He was at 32 7/8, right? You can get so focused on a negative that it diminishes all the positive of what these guys do. And we did the same thing with Tyler Booker. We did the same thing with Ruben Bain. There's multiple examples, but here's my thing. If our miss on these guys is we put them in the 3rd round, they end up going in the 1st round 4 years before they got drafted, it is what it is. We'd love to get them all exactly right, but if we're compressing that target area to being within 100 selections of where they actually go, that means that's somewhat successful of where we'd like to be.
And just to back you up here, I actually had a higher grade on Emory Jones than Will Campbell myself, and I do my own grading. I never told you that, but I tried to do my own prospect evaluation. I don't have access to the camps like you guys do, but I watch your tape and I try and get as much athletic data. And some of that was the arm length stuff. And there was one big personnel person who said that same thing. I didn't know it was you though. I really didn't know that beforehand. And obviously Will ended up being a transcendent LSU player. So do you what do you still stay with the athleticism marks, or have you tinkered with your process?
Yeah, absolutely though. But the misses typically come in terms of de-elevating a player and elevating a player come from that competitive temperament. Think about the juice you have to have from a maturity standpoint to be able to start at left tackle from day one in the SEC.
Jared
Right.
Verse,
And
right in
and
front
and
of you.
part of Will Campbell going at number 4 for the Patriots and Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf and all those guys is they knew and they know exactly what they had in them. Over the last 3 years, take a look at the tape. They know exactly what they have. So that competitive temperament, it's a balance. You don't want to go too much to one side and too much to the other. They have to have the physical traits to be able to play at a high level in the SEC on Sunday, but they also have to have the competitive temperament and the maturity to be able to stay on the field and develop. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they have to be able to show it on the field. I think to answer your question, maybe 4 years ago, I would have told you I was 70-30 traits to production and subjectivity of intangibles. Now I'd probably tell you I'm more 55-45, maybe 60-40, so things change, man. You evolve and you learn from your misses and you learn from your hits too. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I go back to my days at Washington. You're like, hey, yeah, I like the traits. I don't love the traits. They end up being 2 to 3 year starters for you and a team captain and go on and play in the NFL because NFL teams are looking for those same type of qualities.
Yeah, it's strange though, because let's take an athleticism guy that shot up the ranks with little production. That was Isaac Tesla of Arkansas, right? He came from a small school, but his RAS scores were ridiculous, and the Lions did this bold trade up because of his athleticism marks. So it is tough, right, to determine who are the best prospects. Now it's college to the NFL, which is different. But from what I understand, Cooper, the camps are so important. Would you say that these rivals camps, these 247 camps, how big of a percentage are those camps into a player's prospect grade?
They're big, not so much from like testing standpoints. I mean, really what we've seen is guys be able to go into the next level, develop areas where you were maybe a little bit hesitant in terms. Malik Neighbors was one of those guys. I don't think he ran relatively well when we had him going into his senior year, and that was of somewhat of concern. Obviously, no concern as an NFL prospect. We've seen that time and time again at the receiver position, but they're important for a lot of different reasons. You get to see these guys, and I'll talk explicitly about these Under Armour camps, and UC Report, who does a phenomenal job. They pick the best of the best players, region to region. They go across the country, even to Hawaii, and they put these guys in a good on good setting. And it's really in a point of their career where they're at the pinnacle of the evaluation process. Going into their junior year, going into their senior year, there is still something to earn, even in this NIL era where they have to go out there and they have to compete. So you see the want to of these guys before the recruitment gets saturated, and all of a sudden it gets a little deflated because the monetary piece comes into it. So I just think from a movement standpoint, from a body type standpoint, really with offensive linemen, it's about, in defensive linemen, it's about mass, right? It's about the body type. Like what's the bell curve? How soon can these guys actually impact? I like this guy on tape, but what does it kind of look like when he's in that setting? I mean, Dominic McKinley was a guy that never went to camp. Was really, really hard to pin down. you saw flashes of speed to power and extraordinary lower body strength and being able to really translate that into his hands. But the instincts were a little bit of a question mark. We never had him in a combine setting. And then when we had him at the Under Armour game in Orlando, it was the same thing. There were flashes, but it wasn't consistent. Now, that being said, with the defensive linemen, everybody's looking for those type of guys. We
Yes.
call those guys 9 Lives Club, right? Dominic McKinley is a 9 Lives member.
Well, what
If
does
he
that
would've
mean?
it means that, like a cat, he's got multiple lives. If he hasn't showed you anything through 3 to 4 years, he's still going to get an opportunity. Travis Shaw, a former 5-star, played for North Carolina, enters the portal. That's a guy that's probably still going to command $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 in the portal because of what he represents with his size, with his athleticism, and what they can give on the field in terms of production. And those guys have 9 lives at the collegiate level, and they have it at the Sunday level, man. There are guys that you would never think are Sunday players, and all of a sudden you're watching tape and you're saying, how in the world? And it's because they represent something, like I said, from a height, weight, speed standpoint, that there is not enough of in the world. And every NFL team, every SEC team is trying to tap into that market.
And I get that question all the time about Bear Alexander. Why does he keep getting chances? Well, have you seen the guy? Have you seen?
Right. He's got some stuff, dude.
Another fun one is I know it was more like backup Deshaun Hand, like played forever
in the league.
NFL. Yeah, he had major juice. Now, was he ever really that great? But not really.
At Alabama. Byron Cowart, do you remember him?
Yes, Byron Cowart.
Joshua Kando, dude. I mean, you can build a full team of former 5-stars that really didn't play that well in college and have been in the NFL multiple years.
I think where the services have gotten better is a wide receiver, because like the can't miss 5-star guys have mostly been hits. But it seems to me, though, that at wide receiver, it's a little bit more replaceable unless it's just one alpha. I'm talking like Ryan Williams, Cam Coleman, those kinds of players. Do you agree with that?
Talk to me. What do you mean by replaceable?
As in, there's just so many of them. Like, it just seems like there's more wide receivers in the top 100 every year. And with 7-on-7 camps, so many different receivers could look good in a certain setting. So I'm just getting your gauge because you obviously played the position. So your thoughts on wide receiver evaluation as a whole?
Yeah, they're a dime a dozen. I mean, you got to find the trait that kind of like separates them. I think we had 7 in 2024. Jeremiah Smith, number 1 ranked player in the country. We had Cam Coleman at number 2. We had Ryan Williams at number 3. Remember, I'm sure every LSU fan knows this. He was 17. Ryan Williams was awesome. I had Alabama was my region. So I kept going back and forth. How do you stack Cam Coleman or Ryan Williams? And I really defaulted to Cam Coleman, who is a special talent in his own right. I don't know if we'll ever see that come to fruition on the Plains just because of the way it's set up there.
Right.
But, Ryan Williams was one of those guys, man. Like, we put him in Alabama, Mississippi competitive game, showed up, was the best player there. Showed up in Orlando at the UA game, was one of the best players there. And you go down the list. TJ Moore was one of those guys. He earned his 5th star in San Antonio. Gatlin Bear, who was coming back from a LDS mission for Oregon. And then Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis, we really just took a shot on, man. I mean, he was big kid, physical, ran well, verified metrics, and he has started to kind of play into what we thought he could be, right? That goes back to that height, weight, speed thing. There are some positions that you are willing to give a little bit more grace and a little bit more latitude. Now, Micah Hudson, let's talk about him. Hudson was a guy that we really liked, but was different from these guys in the fact that he was a good athlete. He was not an elite athlete.
Interesting.
He was special after the catch. We love the competes, played at a high level in Texas. And in the situation that he was going to in Texas Tech was pretty interesting. Everything there so far has been off the field, and we just haven't seen a sample size. So, receiver is really interesting. If you go down, I think I'm always intrigued by the first ones out. Like, who are the first ones out of that top 32? Mike Matthews was a guy we went back and forth on because he was beautiful. I mean, he played all three phases. He was super clean. He ran 4.48. Crutchfield has not worked out to this point, still getting going for Arkansas. Wesco was super narrow. Mylan Graham was a guy that we liked, but never really, from like a Sunday projection standpoint, there were some questions. And then Kylan Billiot, ironically, we haven't even talked about him.
Yeah.
Just came to San Antonio and we're like, okay, I think there's some residual of like the Brian Thomas where there's like, all right, these LSU mud dogs, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You never get great exposure to them in person. Then they show up at these events and you're like, where did these guys come from?
Now let's get to, if you don't mind, do you have time for one more position?
Of course, man.
Yeah. I've never publicly talked to you about QBs. And to me, this is obviously the hardest to evaluate. Do you feel the same way or?
I do. I think it's getting to the point where every year I kind of like, I'm asking myself, what's the differentiator? All right. So I handle the transfer portal rankings for 247 and CBS.
Oh, okay.
And this year, the number one player in the portal is Nico Iamaleava. And I'm watching him on tape last year. I've studied him all through high school, which makes it a little bit more challenging because you know the background and you see areas of progress as a redshirt freshman. You see areas of progress going into his second year as a starter. If you go back to high school, you're like, all right, I knew there was going to be a learning curve for a guy that hadn't played that much football. And then the confidence that you get is like, all right, I know he's in the right system for him to learn and develop. It's quick, it's open, it's an offense that's kind of tailored around his skill set. And you even talk to Sunday evaluators, guys that have done this at a really high level, GMs, and there's conversation around the kid and just the talent. And this goes back to kind of the Will Campbell thing. But that position, what I've learned, I've kind of put it into two categories, and this is maybe oversimplified. You either play that position or that position plays you. You're either proactive or you're reactive. Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, some of the best to ever do it. And then there's the guys in the middle that have the cerebral instincts to be able to kind of rep it out. And Josh Allen was one of those guys. You go back to watching him in Wyoming, his mechanics, it's unbelievable to see where he is in his career as one of the best players in the NFL. So even like Mateer, right? And we'll see where he ends up as an NFL player. But you watch this guy and he's 6'1". He's got a flair to him. Todd McShay said it best. He's kind of like a wild Mustang. You got to tame him a little bit. But he's got stuff that you can't teach. And then you see him get injected into this program last year, who coming into this season was a really big question mark. And this guy just, he is breathing life into it in Norman, Oklahoma. And it's not just his play, but it's his style of play. And, I think when I evaluate like this quarterback class, and I felt this way all offseason, I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the first player taken in the NFL draft. And I don't even think it's relatively close because of, you think about what he has, not just in terms of arm talent, but the ability to play on time and with anticipation is just stuff so inherent that you can't teach. He's been around the game for such a long time. Scouts are going to turn on that Clemson game. They're going to see everything that he has on his shoulders from pre-snap responsibilities. Yeah. And it's going to be really hard not to fall in love. And then there's going to be a team sitting there at number 2 that's looking at Lenora Sellers wondering, are we drafting the next Anthony Richardson? And that's just going to, whether that's fair or not to Lenoris, they have a lot of similarities just in terms of the conversation that surrounded them. They need time. They need to develop, needs to develop as a passer. Now, intangibly, I think those two guys are different, right? That's where I give like Lenore's the edge. But evaluating this position, no two players are the same. And it's, hearing Tom Brady talk about it today on Fox Sports, it's like you have to have the ability to manage the game and the emotion to be able to have an infectious ability to impact the people around you. And there's some guys that have that. There's some guys that don't. And the guys that don't but can still operate, it's like, all right, can they elevate at such a high level that they're contending for championships year in and year out? And obviously that's a case by case thing, but it's a fascinating position, more so from the psychological standpoint. I think there's enough people that have been doing this for a long time. They can spot the physical traits in the players that are going to be able to cut it, but it's more so, do you have those other intangibles that can elevate your team and lift them up?
I love what you said about Mateer. It's hard to not fall in love with that guy. From the interviews to just changing the entire Oklahoma culture. I do Oklahoma film studies every week, and he's just doing stuff that is just insane. He is just insanely good at football. I don't know if it's going to work in the NFL, but you know what? I don't give a shite about that right now. The dude can flat out play. This is where it gets interesting with QBs, because like you said about Nico, if you just sit and watch his high school stuff, you feel a little Justin Herbert tingle, right? You feel that
man.
arm. Dude, his arm was just different in high school. Different. But then you have the intangible, Scoop.
Well, that was a player comp, man. Ironically enough.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
Yeah. And he was just a big, long, kind of gangly frame, more athletic than people thought. Obviously, the volleyball background has been documented. But he didn't have a ton of reps in high school, man. So the game was still relatively new to him. So you wonder, like, how quickly can he take charge of the position and the responsibilities that come with it? And I talk about it, like, I tweeted about this the other day. It didn't get any traction because maybe I didn't give it enough context. But if you go look at Nico last year, time to throw, from the time the ball hits his hands to the time the ball's out of his hands, in Tennessee's offense, he averaged 2.99 seconds.
God, that's
Joey Aguilar is around low 2.5s. And that offense is all about timing. It's all about ball placement. It's all about accuracy. And I think that's a really good contextual data point to look at two quarterbacks and how they play the position. And maybe one guy is not as talented. Maybe one guy doesn't project to the Sunday level, but is more effective in an offense because of the way that he's able to operate the controls of it, versus another guy that doesn't trust it, doesn't see it, and hasn't built up enough reps to where he's playing the game fast. And that goes back to, are you playing the game or is the game playing you?
Right. That's going to stick with me. Out of anything you said, I've never thought about quarterbacking like that. So how much of the 2027 QBs have you watched?
Oh man, give me a couple names, because I've been going through this transition. I'm trying to think.
Okay,
27 is like Peyton Houston. That's Colton Nussmeier, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Elijah Haven.
It's unfair to ask you about that because you're not really.
I'll give you my thoughts, man. I mean,
Yeah,
what I've seen might be unfair to the prospects, just to where they are in their development. But LSU's in a super, super interesting situation there, because your starting quarterback's got a little brother who can play, and probably has. I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's probably some intrigue there because they know how he's wired just based off of the relationship that they have with Nuss. So there's this floor comfort level there. Like, all right, if we get this guy, we know what we're getting. If he's anything like his brother, we know what type of worker we're getting, and we know what type of maturity we're getting in the room. We know we have a pretty good idea of how Colton Nussmeier is wired. Elijah Haven is interesting because of where he's ranked. It puts a little pressure on LSU in state to make sure that they do their due diligence. And I think he's a guy that sometimes when these rankings happen, and when they happen, really more importantly, things are really kind of shaking out behind the scenes where you're still gathering information on other players that you don't feel as confident about, but they have the ability to challenge for that number one spot. And I think Elijah Haven is in one of those positions right now. It wouldn't shock me. I'm not speaking for anybody, but it wouldn't shock me, in my own personal opinion, if he doesn't end up being number one. He's a guy that you turn on the tape, you like from a physical stature standpoint, athletically, the way he moves. Everything on paper makes sense. And just to be honest, he left a little bit to be desired from a physical arm talent standpoint in terms of driving the ball, making NFL throws of what's going to be asked for him at the next level. I wonder if that part of his game can continue to develop. Outside of that, everything I hear about Elijah Haven between the ears is A+, right? So that makes the decision even harder. And then you got Peyton Houston, who, quite honestly, in terms of just the command of throwing the football, like you watch another 5'10" guy in Bryce Young. I studied him. I was at Washington when I was the director over there. Bryce Young was actually committed, I think, as a freshman or a sophomore. And you watch Bryce Young play, and it was just like, all right, this guy has the ball on a string. Peyton Houston has that.
Dude,
our guys saw him out in Houston, or excuse me, maybe Austin, I believe, at Elite 11 regionals. Really windy day. And he was able to get the ball anywhere on the field anytime he wanted. And he's a stocky build too. He's got a thick lower half, and he's athletic, and he's got some moxie. And here's the thing. LSU really doesn't care where that guy's going to get drafted. It's all about how you help this team while you're here in college, right? So that's where the conversation is really different on a guy like Peyton Houston. But when you watch him, there's some real intrigue around him and what he can do, just because I keep going back to it, but he's a baller, man. Like there's no really projection there. He is what he is, and you kind of know what you're getting, and he's got a lot of juice.
Yeah, and it gets into the upside argument because he's not as big as the other two quarterbacks you mentioned, but Peyton Houston is one of the best sophomore high school football players I've ever seen, ever. He's that good. And I've spent countless hours watching full games, and he wherever he's going to commit here in a few weeks, if it's not LSU, it's going to hurt me. But you never know in the portal era or anything like that. But like for me, it's just tough because his high school numbers are so ridiculous. It's so to average over 400 yards per game. Even if you take out that 800-yard game that he had, which is still great, 800 United States yards in one tackle football game, 800 yards, and however many yards rushing, it was 900 yards. Even if you take that out, it is still a 400-yard per game average as a freaking sophomore. And it's not just rinky-dink competition that he's playing at Evangel. Now, is it the highest level of competition? I don't know. But I understand, like, he's not the biggest. It's kind of like the Deuce Gerald thing as well at defensive line. He's not the biggest guy, but his production is just cartoonishly good. He runs the ball at running back. So there you go. I want you, before you go, because, I'm a film study guy, evaluator guy. You've actually been in these rooms, though. What can you tell my audience that can help them be a smarter football fan? Is it something from an evaluation standpoint that you think could help? Because that's part of my goal as well. It's not just to give the best LSU analysis, but I want the people that watch this show, from someone like you who's dedicated your entire working life to the sport, what can you do to help everybody understand the game of football at a deeper level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in that sense, when you're talking about a recruit that's so dynamic like Peyton Houston, in trying to understand the inner workings of how teams get to decisions, it's really important. just in terms of what I talk about, like with height, weight, speed, and building depth, and why it's important, and finding guys that ideally fit your scheme. I mean, like let's think about year 1 to year 2, Blake Baker. Let's talk about all these different moves, right? They bring in Pat Payton. They get more length on the edge. They bring in Jack Pyburn, guy with a really high motor, high floor. They bring in Bernard Gooden, who might be the most impactful of all of them outside of Mansour Delane.
Yeah.
And then you think about that secondary, Halsey. You think about Tamarcus Cooley. These are all guys that fit Blake Baker's system. And I think that word fit is not used enough when we talk about scouting and evaluating players. And it's really, really important. AJ Halsey was a guy that I evaluated in the portal, and you see him playing boundary, and you see him, he's really good in run support. I had some question marks in coverage just with the speed and man-to-man. But I'm like, man, this dude is always around the football. Yeah. Instinctive, has played so much football. And then you see this, bidding war between LSU and Miami, because LSU and Miami, both of them know the importance of having a safety back there that can control things that you can trust. And here's a little secret. Like, safety outside of quarterback, really in the SEC, is maybe the most valued position to these schools. It's so important to have them.
Wait, hold on. Safety, because most would say it's left tackle or X wide receiver, but you're saying to teams
they're hard to find, man. They're hard to find. Like it goes back to the market supply. Having guys like Dylan Thieneman at Oregon, guys like Zachariah Poyser at Miami. We had 2 safeties ranked in the top 100. It became very clear early on. I would talk to these teams. They were like, hey, if you have any safeties that hit, have the instincts, have the reps, have the games played, let us know. And these teams rely so – I mean, think about Georgia. Think about the guys that they've had. They had to play a freshman in KJ Bolden next to Malachi Starks, who they had to take and move to a different position, play him in the slot.
Yeah.
Right? What a selfless move by him. Probably hurt his draft stock. I talked about Dan Jackson. That was a position like they were really worried about. And you look at LSU and like how big was Halsey in the second half of that game in week 1?
Oh, it might have decided it in many ways, yeah.
But it also puts people it elevates other players when you plug the holes the right way. I mean, through 2 weeks, I didn't expect this. Jordan Gilbert has popped on tape for me. Looks at home at the star spot. He's playing really fast. It's a lot better than him playing in the deep third. Him playing downhill and kind of unlocking him. He's able to do that because of the acquisitions of who they brought in with AJ Halsey and Tamarcus Cooley. So all these things play off each other. And I think that's really, really important, for LSU to go out and get Braylon Moore. And now it's not Paul Mupinga at center, it's at guard, and he can grow and he can develop, right? Even though these guys are cross-trained. So I talk about like being able to have these buckets of vision for how you think these guys will be successful in each of these schemes, I think is really important. And I think for LSU's case, they've done a tremendous job defensively, and they're still trying to work out some things offensively. But I would say that, man, I think it's really
– that safety comment is so interesting to me because it was every live stream. It was just me bitching about the safety play last year for LSU. And I am of the belief that the worst position on defense to be ass is safety. You're in a lot of trouble because college football is a wacky sport. Those touchdown saving tackles are so big. Instead of a 70-yard touchdown, it's a 60-yarder, and you're forcing them to convert on 1st and goal from the 10. Then you're also giving your offense time. Oh crap, they're about to score. We need to get our act together. Those plays are so big, and LSU didn't make them last year. And now I feel a lot more comfortable with Halsey make it those touchdown savers. So it's very interesting. Last one. This is a question I get all the time, Cooper. How does your offer list affect your ranking?
It honestly, and this is something that since I was at 24/7, we worked really hard to just kind of strip this out of it. We wanted to make it about everything that I talked about earlier. So whether you're playing at Iowa State, whether you're playing at Ohio State, whether you're playing at Tulane, we wanted to make we wanted to make it about how do these guys project to Sunday, not so much Sunday performance, but in terms of, all right, where do these guys kind of measure out in the next 3 to 4 years if they go through the draft process? Those traits, strip the logo away, and you're able to have a standardized, objective conversation on all these guys and how they kind of compare and contrast. And we've done a better job leaning into guys and putting 4-star rankings on group of 5 players. We've done a lot better job of canvassing the entire country, doing cross checks on Power 4 teams. And, that's how Andrew was able to identify Corey Parrish, and we got him in the All-American game. And, the safety of Minnesota that's playing 2 ways.
The player from Minnesota.
Correct.
Okay.
So us being able to identify those guys and, when we ranked Keelan Russell inside the top 75, he was committed to SMU. Sometimes you do things that aren't sexy, but being able to follow your board, rack and stack, trust your process, that's really the biggest thing. And that's where the traits and the production, the multi-sport athleticism, the track and field, you're really projecting the athlete with a combination of, all right, how do these guys fundamentally develop over the next 3 to 4 years, and what does that look like? And some guys you like, and you get a little bit of an icky feeling because you're like, I don't love that situation,
Okay.
but you can't hold that against them. And especially in the day and age where these guys are bouncing back and forth to different schools, right? So I understand that question. I understand why that comes up a lot. And I think that's justifiable to ask that question. But I know our team, speaking strictly for 24/7 and the work that they have done over the last 4 years since I've been there, has done an unbelievable job at really racking and stacking based on projection of how these guys compare and contrast on Sundays.
So it's not, hey, the Go 247 has a lot of subs. Let's give Dominic McKinley the number 1 overall spot. It's not.
No, I think it's, it probably wasn't sexy to rank Lincoln Cure high when he was committed to Kansas State, or Dramad Odoms when he's committed to SMU. That's not something that, is going to pad the wallet by any means. If anything, what it does is it brings your eyes and your attention to the prospect. Yeah. So it's like, okay, hey, we have this guy ranked as a group of 5 starter with maybe some Power 4 upside. And yet here he is. We got a battle between Ohio State, Michigan, and Kentucky. Maybe we should look back into this guy because there's some teams that have some player development history that we're the outlier in the market, right? So let's go back and let's do some more homework. And that's what it is. It's really a balancing act there. I mean, you're trying to figure out, hey, are we missing something here? And sometimes you go and you say, oh, there's a new data point. They like this kid. Maybe they're overcompensating. They like the fact he ran 10.6. We're still lukewarm on the fact that he didn't have a ton of production as a junior. We'll wait and see, right? We'll wait till midway through his senior season. So all those things, go into it and play a factor.
Yeah. And I think I do push back on people that say the offer list shouldn't matter. In theory, it shouldn't, but I like using a consensus. The 247 and on 3 grades help me grade prospects. It's part of my formula for every LSU high school kid when I go watch them. Because it'd be stupid for me to not evaluate and use their opinions, right? Why would I only base it on just what I think? I think that's dumb, right? And what I would recommend everyone do is just go watch the players for yourselves, right? There's some guys that I'm like, you can read the reports and see what Andrew Ivins or Alan True or whoever says about a kid, and then you can draw your own conclusions, look up their spark scores and all those different things, and then actually go watch your high school tape, and then you can make your own grade. I did that very thing, and I have gotten some things correct. I've gotten some things flat out wrong. Absolute. I thought Mohanta was going to be the next great thing, but it's fun. It's honestly fun, and it's never going to be an exact science.
Well, how do you build boards in a collegiate personnel staff? All right, if I'm at LSU, they have what these things are called recruiting conferences, okay? Which means that if I'm at LSU, it means I monitor every team in my conference and every offer that they send out. So if that's a 26, a 27, or a 28, I know about it. Comes across my desk, okay? There's other teams that we respect that do business in our region that we want to have a presence. We're going to add that team to the recruiting conference. That's how you build your database. If there are players that you have not identified yet, other schools doing homework on these guys, then bring them to your attention, and then you do the work, which is why you see all this piggybacking, right? There's a lot of teams that want to slow play prospects that say, hey, maybe there's a guy in Louisiana I like. We're not there yet on him.
Yeah.
But Florida comes in, Alabama comes in, they offer him. And then LSU says, can't fall behind. We got to go. And that's it. I mean, there's so much more nuance to it than, hey, we love them. We're going to take them. Hey, we got to offer you to stay in the game. We're going to build a relationship. We need to get you to camp before we take your commitment. There are a lot of boxes we need to check.
Last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, last one, because I know I'm keeping you forever, but it is kind of like how we used to chat for forever at KLSU about this. Your memory is way better than mine. I did not remember that opening KLSU story. It is fun seeing what you've done and become national. That I was the first person to give you a job, and look at you now, man. You're doing it big. You got a nice crib, obviously. Look at that. Let's get into the general manager side of it, because I think you personally would have enjoyed being back in a college personnel department, because now this really does matter. Evaluations really do matter more now than ever before, because there is a theoretical cap, if you will. Is that true?
It mattered back then too, buddy.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, yeah, I think they matter just in terms of money spent. It's important. There's more of a microscope on you year to year, just in terms of what you're doing, how you're investing in that roster, and what it looks like. LSU is really interesting. I obviously we're talking about LSU, but
yeah.
Like you look at the first 3 years, Brian Kelly really was trying to figure it out. I mean, they had players that they took from Jackson Howard from Minnesota. They went up to Indiana, took an outside backer. It was Brian Polian. They were trying to figure things out. They kind of have a national approach, quickly adjust it, and they've been kind of going through it. They bring back Austin Thomas, who some know, maybe some don't. But I don't know outside of Blake Baker if there's been a more impactful move that Brian Kelly's made than bringing back Austin Thomas and the infrastructure that he's been able to provide LSU and what they've been able to do from a talent acquisition standpoint. And knowing the caliber of players that it takes, that's a big thing. Knowing the caliber of players that it takes to not only compete in the SEC, but win SEC titles and compete for championships. Brian Kelly's a good coach. He needs all the tools. So to be able to have somebody sit shotgun with him that can really kind of lead him to water and say, hey, I'm going to compliment you in a way that I know what this looks like. Let's put the puzzle pieces together. Let's figure out where we want to invest. And let's figure out what we want this thing to look like. The best thing that LSU has going for him, if you're a fan, is that Brian Kelly has shown an ability to evolve. And you can make a strong argument that this should have happened 2 years ago, and I would agree with you, but it's year 4, and it's better late than ever. And quite honestly, from the teams that I've watched, I mean, this is a team that, in my humble opinion, is ready to compete for a national championship. So you got to give them credit. And Lincoln Riley went through the same thing at USC. He went out and he got Chad Bowden. I think they're doing a really good job at USC trying to establish getting that program back to where it needs to be. You've seen in the NIL era, coaches, instead of getting fired, maybe given a little bit more grace, another year, another 2 years, to say, all right, let's pivot here. Let's bring in some other people that can challenge you on your vision and your expertise. And this is a hard job. It's 365 days. You have to have the humility to be able to take a step back, look yourself in the mirror, and say that you can't do everything. Not a lot of people can. The only guy I've ever been around that could do it is Nick Saban.
That's it, man.
And I've worked with a lot of really good head coaches, man. Chris Peterson, Jim Harbaugh, Mario Cristobal. There was only one that could do it at the level that he did. So I think those guys can be an asset only if you let them be an asset. If you still try to hoard it, that responsibility yourself, I think those are the guys that are going to end up stuck in the mud, and they're going to find themselves struggling to compete in this day and age in college football.
Cooper Patagna. Have I ever pronounced your last name correctly?
You did at the beginning of the show, and you just butchered it at the end of the show.
I know. That's
Patagna.
Patagna. Why would I say Patagna at the beginning?
Because Patagna is actually the right pronunciation if you're from Sicily. But you know, we're in America. It's Patagna.
It's interesting because I've stayed with the Jansen before to cover Saints camp, and Jansen, your brother, was doing some stuff with the Saints at the time. I remember walking up to him and meeting him somewhere, and there was just a guy standing next to him, and we were just having a conversation, and Jansen just stopped me. He was like, "Carter, this is Devery Henderson, by the way," and I was like, "No way, no!" I was like, "How did I not recognize him?" Because I was so excited to see Jansen.
Right.
Your brother is the absolute nicest, coolest real estate maven, and you're doing the dang thing as well. Check out a show. Go follow him. It's right there. That's his name on social media. Let him know you enjoyed this, and thank you, because I'm glad we didn't just go through and break down games. I really feel my audience learned a lot from you, peeking behind the curtain. And I really did mean, like, you probably didn't know I was going to say the nice things about Ivans. I do reach out to some of these personnel people, and they're like, "Dude, that dude is sharp. That dude," and that's why, like, someone like Barton Simmons got hired by Vanderbilt. He was sharp. So there you go. That's gonna be you one day.
Yeah, well, I've done it, man. I'm a dad now. I'm moving back to Louisiana next year.
You're in Nashville now, correct?
Yeah, I've done it. I've enjoyed it. It's been great for me, and I'm enjoying this stage of my career and what I'm doing, and being able to talk to you and to Andrew. Like, I really mean that. He's one of one in terms of the work ethic, and I have a feeling, you know, maybe someday soon he will have an opportunity to get to do it. And I hope so, because I think he'll do a tremendous job.
Cooper, we'll talk soon, brother.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
There you go. Y'all go give him a follow. KLSU days. I meant to wear my KLSU shirt. So KLSU, for those that don't know, is a student radio station. It is located literally next door to Tiger Stadium. So you do the show, you walk out the studio, Tiger Stadium is right there. Okay. John Frisha, of course. And there have been so many talented media people that went through the student media basement, if you will, that have gone on to do national media stuff. And I am not one of them. I just stick doing my thing. I want to do national media like Cooper, but he is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So there you go. Let's answer a few before we skedaddle. Let's go to one of the many members of PHL. Linemen are the best athlete next to gymnastic ladies. Yeah, it's true. The gymnastic ladies. They're good. They are really talented. Yeah, so we kind of went full circle on the offer list thing. It does affect your ranking, but it also doesn't. I try to not let offer list affect how I rank prospects. I try to. It's hard. It's really, I cannot stress enough how hard it is to not let ranking. I try not to let ranking affect anything. I would never put Thursday Night Football on if it wasn't Jaden Daniels. So that's underway. I didn't think we'd go that long, but there you go. Yeah, Cliff. So Cliff does his own prospect evaluations too. He tries the hard science of guessing who the best players are. Always remember that it's a guess. Okay. I would also say I give him a lot of credit for jumping on an LSU channel and him walking into the den here. Because if you ever say anything negative about Will Campbell on here, the Wolves are after you. Some of Will's confidants watch this channel, have been on this channel. We've never had Will on. That's a dream guest of mine. But Cooper said, "Look, I was a guy that knocked him down." That's crazy. I did not know that. I did not know that. But as our patrons know, I thought Will's ranking was about right. So the 247 ranking knocked him down to the 60s. His consensus was barely outside of a 5-star. And that's about where I had him. I had him as like a top 100, top 50-ish player. I also did not have him as a 5-star in my own thing. I thought where he was the correct ranking. And I was wrong. He was obviously a 5-star plus. He was one of the best players in the class. And, that's what Cooper said. I got it wrong because they are grading their players based on what the NFL draft capital is going to say. Let's go to Pegasus. Oh, this would have been a good question to ask him. Do you think it's harder to rank high school recruits or transfers? I would definitely say high school recruits. I would. Like, for instance, if you actually sat and watched Jack Pyburn, you knew what you were getting. Okay. There question marks in terms of pass rushing and being an every down player, sure. But if you sat and actually watched Jack Pyburn, you knew what you were getting. Okay. Which is obviously a very good starter, one of the better players on our team. So in high school, you really don't know. You really don't. Like, I think Deuce Gerald's is a 5-star. I do. I overrate, to a certain extent, high school production. I would be the first to tell you that. I overrate it. Now, why do I overrate it? Well, it's because I do tend to think production is tough. I do think it is really difficult to put up ridiculously high numbers week to week at any level. Okay, it's still hard to do it. Obviously, if you're playing 2A ball versus offensive linemen who are like 160 pounds, it's a completely different thing. But for me, that's part of the reason why Peyton Houston is truly ridiculous to me. Truly ridiculous. I will say it is hard for me to not go to LSU and say, this is a guy. This is a guy. I understand why you would want Haven. I understand why you would want Nussmeier. And I know it's very early, but with this, you do have to guess a little bit early. Okay. Because I really do mean it. I just don't know how many high school quarterbacks I have ever seen better than him as a high school quarterback. Now, it's different. Trey Quinn was a better high school receiver than anyone. He's the all-time record holder of the entire world in prep receiving. So it's not the be-all, end-all. But it's Peyton Houston is just hard for me when I sit down and watch. It's hard for me to quit watching him. He's that good. He's that freaking good. And you would feel the same way if you actually just sat and watched him play football. The QB from Michigan did not look good against Oklahoma. I guess he will improve. Not a shock, really. I mean, the things that truly matter in college football are the same things that matter to a certain degree in the NFL. Quarterback, head coach, OCDC. Okay. Now, there's some things that matter more in college than in the NFL. Sure. Okay. I think an elite running back is so much more powerful in college than in the NFL. And there's a whole different line of logic regarding that. Okay. But I say that because I don't think Sharon Moore is a good coach. I just don't. I think that job is just so difficult, so big. There's a lot of extracurriculars at the Michigan job, probably more there than anywhere else. That I think it's hard for him, for that being your first job as a head coach. But then again, they're recruiting well, and they got money. It's a good question from Colton. I would probably say DeCorian Moore, but we'll see what Tristan Key's high school tape is. I thought DeCorian Moore was so good. I really did. I really, really, really did. I thought him and Bryce were both very, very, very good. I liked DeCorian more than no, I liked Bryce more than I liked DeCorian more. Let's see. Is there any other? Oh, I liked Cam Coleman more than I liked Jeremiah Smith, which obviously isn't right. But Cam Coleman's a dog. So, there's things that you agree with. There's things that you disagree with. I liked Khalil Lockett at wide receiver a lot more than most. We'll see what he does at Texas. They got to figure out quarterback first. It's a Parker Livingstone show right now. But there's more to it. And then Cooper also was talking about the intangibles. You could argue the two most gifted quarterbacks to ever play at LSU, and I think gifted is just too subjective. It's just, I think that could get too athleticism based. But those two quarterbacks were Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Perrilloux. It's just mentally they're not close to Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow, who are mentally elite in the NFL. But I meant to bring this up yesterday. Actually, I lied. I just forgot that this was yesterday. But I saw Jamarcus Russell post about this on Instagram, and at midnight last night, I decided to go tweet this out. Yesterday was the 20th year anniversary of the Jamarcus Russell throw versus Arizona State. Okay. As great as Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels are, there is never a world where they are making that throw, because there are 5 quarterbacks maybe ever who could have made that throw. That is still and these are not my words, these are the words of Matt freaking Flynn, that the best throw he has ever seen at LSU was the J. Russ Arizona State throw. He tweeted that out at me. It's always stuck with me. That also, to me, is the craziest throw. I'm not saying it's the best throw. Obviously, 3rd and 17 clears it. Matt Flynn to Bird clears it. In terms of importance in national championships, you can argue Matt Mock to Skylar Green versus Georgia, all those different things, okay? But I am not sure if there's ever been another LSU quarterback that could have made the throw that Jamarcus Russell made versus Arizona State. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a better throw than 3rd and 17, because 3rd and 17, Joe is missing blitzers, diagnosing the coverage. Jamarcus was just playing backyard football, rolls out to the right, goes back to the left. The audacity to throw that ball on a rope 45 yards. It's actually longer because it wasn't a straight throw. To generate the torque on that pass is stupid. It is downright borderline insane to think that you can make that throw, and he was able to do it. And he said he himself said in interviews, "Hey, I'm not a tape guy. I just want to go out there and play." He said that in interviews. He said my work ethic wasn't what it needed to be. And then there's the fake tape story. I mean, there's 1,000 J. Russ stories. I will always defend J. Russ. He was a good quarterback at LSU, and that's all that matters for me. Okay. But, complicated guy. First ever quarterback at LSU to have back-to-back 10-win seasons. So that counts for something. And he was insanely clutch. Insanely clutch. Yeah, Burt Jones was special too. And look, I like Burt more than I like Jay Russ. I've met Burt a few times. I've shared it plenty of times. Burt's best friend is also one of my family's really close friends. So, but that if you were to go back and watch the Arizona State throw, watch it and just see. The thing is, when you watch that throw, it feels like you can hear it. That's how good of a throw that was. You feel like you could hear that ball just going shh, just piercing through the air. But Jaden Daniels, dude, like it's kind of weird, they're saying, "Hey, can Garrett have the year 2 jump like Jaden and Joe?" And the answer is yeah. Garrett could still have a massive leap and win the Heisman. It's just Jaden and Joe never played a bad game their final season. Like, really think about that. They did not play a single bad game, either one of them. Now, Jaden had a few rough halves early, but after that, he was perfect. Perfect. He was a perfect quarterback. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. This position is really, really hard to play. Ask Sibley, dude. Burt Jones is a man. Am I watching? Oh, do y'all want me to? Or if y'all have the Jaden game on in the background, yeah, I'll do play-by-play for the next Jaden drive. I got to do a Commander show later tonight on the NFL channel. Here's my thing. I'm worried if you're watching the game in the background, like Mahomes gets away with this all the time, but defenders never want to go for the kill shot for the quarterback. But what if the quarterback goes for the kill shot to you? There you go. You gifted 1 Power Hour LSU membership. Now, I don't know how that works. I've seen other people do the gifted thing, and it is very important. Once again, I'm going to ask you, Jared, thank you so much. Jared and I had a phone conversation last night. It was great. We still have never had a bad guest on PHL. Tonight was great. Tonight was really great. We still have never had a bad guest. And I hate that. I hate that. I want to have one bad one. I should just go book some bad guests. Now, I thought this was interesting. I thought this was very interesting. A guy who I have a lot of respect for, or I should say, I have a lot of respect for the Advocate writers, Wilson Alexander, who we will get on here one day, and Koki Riley. I've always had a lot of respect for Koki Riley. Now, Robin Fambro, who retired, blows them all out of the water. She might be the best sports writer that's ever written there. Okay. Jerry, you want to hop on? But Koki Riley defended his AP poll this week. He defended it. And I haven't had a chance to go listen because I called him out yesterday saying his AP poll was not great. He had Florida State ranked way too low. But I read on Twitter, it was something he said. He said that the reason he still has Alabama ahead of Florida State was based on his preseason read on the team. And he thinks Alabama is still better than them. Okay. You can't do that in week 2. The AP poll, to me, is not a power ranking. I think for every writer or everyone that does college football media and they do rankings, I think you do need to do 2 sets of rankings. And I do this. I'm starting to do this every week. Rank who you think the best teams are, and then rank how you would have them based on resume. And it could be a mixture of how you think the teams are. It's just this early in the season, if Florida State beats Alabama, I don't think you can have Alabama ahead of Florida State. Okay? I just don't think you can do that. That's just me. Same reason when the Haley, I don't remember her last name. It's a beautiful name. Haley said she did have Florida ahead of South Florida. I think that was just she wasn't paying attention. I wanted a bad guess. There we go. Jared Addison said have him on if we wanted to have a bad guess. All right, we'll do one Jayden drive. Why not? Mario Craver of Texas A&M is the highest rated PFF wide receiver in the SEC. So how does a gifted membership work? I'll Google this. I'm so used to the memberships. Player X. Is there another service like PFF? So should I start my own PFF and it just be college? College is hard. Okay, so I'm gonna say something that's going to sound stupid, but college is so much harder to cover than the NFL. So much harder. It's not even close. I think cover is a subjective word. High school is way tougher than any of them. So Jayden, a run right there, a loss of 1 yard. He's in pistol again. They run it again with Austin Eckler. Picks up a few. It sets up third and about 7. College is just so hard to evaluate. It really, really, really is. You know, I'm a uniform nerd, jersey number nerd. The Packers, the mesh on their uniforms are made by a local company, and that's why they look so good. They use a different kind of fabric than the other teams in the NFL. Dude, Austin Eckler's good, man. Okay, there's a flag. So going back to the star ranking thing that Cooper was talking about, Rashawn Gary, who's out there, 5-star. Micah Parsons, who's out there, 5-star. Quay Walker, who's out there, 5-star. Jaden Daniels, who's out there, number 1 ranked 4-star. Was that not roughing right there? This finish right here on Jaden? Sheesh. Packers look like the best team in the NFL right now. Jeez. All right, y'all. Don't forget, no pregame, no halftime. We will do a postgame show. It might be a little late. Let's get some more names in green. I don't know. Let's ask Jace Maxis to look at my face. You got a week off this week, and we'll start back up next week. Tell you, Jace Max is a TikTok maven. Bro was on fire yesterday. I don't know. I am down to 196, which is the lowest weight I have had. And it's ironic. I wasn't supposed to go long because I cut. He might still be listening. Samuel, his tailgate, asked me to cut an 8-minute tailgate mix. It's on Patreon, by the way, if you guys want to have it. He calls me this week and says, "Hey, can you do a 30-minute mix?" And I was like, "Sheesh, 8 minutes to 30 minutes. There's jokes to be made there." Oh man. Oh, that's so funny. But 8 minutes to 30 minutes. Ask me about it. That is an eternity. That is an eternity of time. That is an eternity of time. That is an eternity of time. But yeah, so I spent a good bit of today getting that together for him, and he wants a bunch of like legendary LSU calls and clips, and that makes it hard because you gotta you're pulling up old Jim Hawthorne calls, and you're like, okay, so you have to pull up the call, then you have to. I don't do a whole lot of like mixed mastering. I know I should. And then you got to make sure the call is clean enough because this is being played on loudspeakers at a tailgate. So even if it sounds good on your rinky-dink laptop computer, you got to make sure it sounds good in front of like 50 people or however many people are at the tailgate. Cliff's been with me to Samuel's tailgate. I didn't know this. Wait, what is this, Sibley? I'll tell you, Sibley just the most random LSU stuff. And there's one of Sibley's guys right there, Matthew Golden on the carry. The Packers uniforms are based on the LSU uniforms. Paul Dietzel designed both the LSU and the Ole Miss uniforms. Packers came down to BR and got the pattern. I did not know that. I will say in terms of aura, and I'm a Commanders fan, even pre-Jaden Daniels. There we go, Zach. My family's big Doug Williams fans. And I was born around the time that the Joe Gibbs Washington team won a big game. So I will say Green Bay's uniform aura and logo and iconic, all that stuff, it clears Washington. I would have never named the team the Commanders. There you go. Make a tackle. Good. Get Jaden the ball back. All right, y'all. Yeah, Sarado, man. The old team name. It's just not worth getting into that debate on an LSU channel. But I know Jaden has put in. I will say, Jaden Daniels in the old school edit of their uniform, they need to make the old school versions of their current uniforms permanent. They need to. I know it's tough for Jaden though, but that's the thing. That's why there's so much pressure on Jaden. If you win, people just don't care as much. All right, y'all. Big thanks to our friends at Laborde Therapy Center. 5 different locations in Lafayette. Y'all, they are keeping us running. PHL couldn't happen without Laborde Therapy Center. So please go support them. And if you're healthy or you're not, going through pain or whatever, at least go like them on their Facebook page, labordetherapy.com. Okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Tonight we're doing fish. Let's go. Top super chatter tonight is J Red. Let's go.